Hi, I'd like to return my receipt for Jets Trash Talk.
Yeah. Check the fine print. Doesn't count against the Browns. Now it's really me. We were just checking to make sure that you were paying attention. Good Monday morning, everybody. I'm Jesse Cofield. You are watching 55 minutes of fantasy and sports betting goodness, a.k.a. The Sweat. You have a lot to look forward to. Here's what is coming up. We're going to be recapping Week 2 in Rainmakers, and we're going to be looking ahead at what's to come this week. We're going to take a look at today's baseball slate, and obviously we're going to preview the President's Cup. But first, we had some absolutely wild finishes in the NFL in Week 2. Here to break it down, we got DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich and Pierce Dietrich. Fellas, NFL hangover time, all right? So let's overreact to Week 2 in the NFL. Everything that went down, all the crazy finishes. So, like I said, some crazy finishes in said Week 2. Dallas puts together a drive to win. Miami comes back to beat Baltimore after a huge deficit. The Jets shock the Browns, and the Cardinals had that unbelievable comeback in Vegas. So, Jeff, which end-of-game drive and finish stood out the most to you?
So, legitimately, we could spend the whole show talking about this Sunday. I mean, just insane. From a fantasy standpoint, the Miami game was just so pivotal, and seeing their receivers go off, that's interesting. But for me, the most significant comeback was the Cardinals. This is a team that had all the reasons to be just dead in the water, done. They stink. Their secondary is not good. They have no receivers. They're down 20-0. I'm telling you, Kyler Murray, really, I've almost just done a complete 180 on Kyler Murray. I mean, that was impressive. This guy has no reason to go out there and support Cliff Kingsbury. He put the team on his back. His throw on the 2-point conversion to A.J. Green, probably one of the best throws you're ever going to see. He also, basically just eluded about 5 Raiders pass defenders on his way to just getting the touchdown in one of the most amazing scrambles you'll ever see as well. So that to me was the biggest comeback, just for the way that Kyler performed in the second half. Was not expecting that team to show any fight at all. And it's not like I think that the Cardinals are going to be good, but I think you definitely have to start, maybe just flipping our switch here about Kyler Murray kind of being made fun of all preseason, doesn't read the playbook, got this weird contract. It was a really impressive performance, and I'm not bullish on the Cardinals long-term, but from a player perspective, that to me really stood out the most of all these crazy drives. The Jets were the Jets. That was just luck. I mean, that's just the Browns giving the Jets a game. The Ravens secondary is basically a skeleton crew again. I'm telling you, Kyler Murray won that game for the Cardinals, and he deserves a lot of respect for it.
Yeah, and it was just crazy to see the Raiders fans in the stands going crazy, celebrating
at halftime too, Jesse, popping off the dome and stuff.
Literally popping bottles.
We got a 20-point lead. It's the Cardinals. It'll be okay. Sure.
Nope.
Raiders.
Nope. Pierce, what do you think?
Well, Jeff mentions the Ravens secondary is depleted again, so that's going to be a green light in fantasy for everybody moving forward. They gave up 300 yards passing to Flacco week 1. They just basically imploded, made some really bad plays. And you're going to expect more of that big bad plays moving forward to target the Ravens. But you got to give credit to Tua and the Dolphins for coming back and rallying. I don't know if I want to give them too much credit and say that this team is a Super Bowl contender yet, but they rallied. They made the plays that they had to make. They caught the wide open passes that were wide open. I don't remember a time where you had 2 receivers catch 11 passes each for over 180 yards. I can't recall. Maybe there was a time during the Vikings.
It's a record. It's the first time 2 receivers have gone for 150, Pierce. It's legitimately, it was a record, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that makes sense. I'd never seen anything
That's why
like
you don't remember it, because it never happened.
Yeah, it never happened. So Baltimore, but, on the bright side, Baltimore offense looked really strong, at least from passing attack. Again, they didn't have J.K. Dobbins, but Lamar Jackson looks like a guy you're probably going to pay a lot of money for at the end of the season. And Bateman came through with a solid game. We saw Andrews. The thing with Andrews, a lot of his top performances last season were always with Tyler Huntley at quarterback. Well, now it looks like Lamar Jackson and Andrews are going to continue that trend. They're a team to watch. I want to overreact to the Cowboys winning on that last drive. They got a couple lucky penalties before that, and they also caught a crazy deflected. I don't even want to call it a drive for the win. They got a deflected pass and then kicked a field goal. Nonetheless, the Cowboys played 4 solid quarters and hung into that game, and the Bengals once again just asleep at the wheel and then wake up and it's just too late.
All right, biggest injury news of the week is definitely Trey Lance breaking his ankle. Sorry, Jeff. Jimmy G kept the offense going over Pierce's Seahawks. So what's the outlook for the 49ers without Lance? I mean, are they just, Pierce, still in that division battle simply because of Garoppolo? 49ers looking pretty smart right now for re-signing him and making him the highest paid backup quarterback in the league.
Yeah, they absolutely are looking pretty smart. And look, it's not that crazy to think that, hey, you got a mobile quarterback. What happens to mobile quarterbacks? Sometimes they suffer season-long injuries. A lot of times they miss 3 or 4 games during a season. You're always going to need a backup, a solid backup if you want to make it to the playoffs, if you're going to start a mobile quarterback. So it wasn't like they were playing 4D chess or anything, but they made a smart move. It worked out. And I believe the 49ers are going to be the team to beat. Seahawks, they're doomed. They're done. The only chance the Seahawks had was if Trey Lance was going to go out there and lose football games for the 49ers. Now you got a consistent, elite game manager. They're going to do what they do under a Shanahan offense, which is just constantly run the ball. And they've proven, as Jeff has mentioned, that it doesn't matter who you put back there. I mean, you put Mostert, you put Eli back there. Now Jeff Wilson looks like a Pro Bowl running back. It doesn't matter. They're going to be fine. They'll work out some wrinkles to Debo here and there. That'll help them win games. And that defense looks sharp. It looks solid. And I think they're going to be the team to beat in this division.
All right, Jeff, what's your take on this?
I'm glad Pierce has come over to the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit weird that it took a Trey Lance injury for him to do it. But look, yeah, the 49ers are going to do exactly what they did last year with Jimmy Garoppolo, which is challenge for the conference championship. I mean, they got to the NFC title game last year. It's just a very solid team. And I mean, Pierce is right to an extent. Like, when this team has Jimmy Garoppolo back, they play a little bit simpler football, and sometimes that's good. What I do worry about is with no Trey Lance, again, where did they end? Where did the season end? The season ended for the 49ers last year on a drive where they needed points, and Jimmy Garoppolo is out there throwing missiles over guys' heads, getting sacked for no reason. Like, that's where you want the Trey Lance upside, and they're not going to have it. So Jimmy Garoppolo does need to elevate his play. Like, this guy, absolutely, if they want to take the actual next step, he's got to do something. But for as far as like for regular season outlooks, yeah, I would go bet the 49ers for the division. The team looked extremely dominant last week. They even had like gave up a field goal touch. That's the only thing. It was like a special teams mistake. They absolutely dominated that game from start to finish with or without Lance. So I'm still very bullish on the 49ers. I think this is actually a good buy low spot with the Rams coming off a win. By the way, the Rams like barely beating the Falcons there, almost letting them back in the game. Not great for them. Their defense looks horrendous compared to last year. So, yeah, I'm very big on the 49ers. I think at the very least, you've got to just project them as being it's almost like they have a lower, maybe a little bit lower ceiling, but a higher floor with Jimmy Garoppolo in there. It's probably good to go over on their win totals and stuff like that.
All right, let's talk about the Bengals. They fall to 0-2, but with both of their games ending on a time-expiring kick. So how worried are you here about the defending AFC champs? Like, I read a wild stat today, okay? Joe Burrow has taken 13 sacks through 2 games. The total number of sacks for the rest of the AFC North combined is just 8, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big worry. I think that's the big worry you have with the Bengals is Joe Burrow going to survive the season? But honestly, from like a game perspective, I'm not that worried. This team should have won week 1. They had like a 99.9% chance going into the extra point, which got blocked. They also missed a field goal. They should have won the first game. Last week, asleep at the wheel, they let Cooper Rush get them, and then they couldn't execute down late. Sure. But the one thing you got to remember about the Bengals, they're in a pretty weak division here. Like, the Browns are out here throwing games. The Ravens are honestly, I think the Ravens are done. And, you know, you've got the Bengals here. Like, they'll get it together. Their O-line needs to get some symmetry. Absolutely. That's a concern. I think they'll get it together. Offense is only going to start clicking more with Chase and Higgins. And their defense has actually been pretty solid. I mean, their defense held up well after giving up like an early touchdown to the Steelers. So I think that the Bengals are in a division where, you know, they can still win this thing. I mean, I don't think they're out of it by any means. They've got 3 weak opponents here. everyone's like, the top team is 1-1. It's not like they're far behind. They've got division games coming up. I would actually buy low on the Bengals here. I think that as long as Burrow stays upright, which again, is questionable right now with how much he's getting hit. But if he stays upright, this is still the best team in the AFC North right now, which maybe isn't saying that much, but from a division winning bet, from maybe even just like a make the playoffs bet, I think the Bengals will get it together. Don't overreact. They should at least be 1-1, and they'll get it together in time.
Pierce, do you agree the Bengals are going to be just fine here simply because the rest of the division is trash?
They're going to be just fine. And you have the division being trash. I don't know if we want to go that far, but the division is struggling. Fortunately for the Bengals, every divisional team is losing. Every divisional team is suffering injuries. So if there was a division to start out slowly, the AFC North is apparently going to be that division. And the Bengals have started out slowly. They've been sluggish in their first 2 games, and they've been able to rally and catch back up in those games, but ultimately they keep falling short. But they've got to figure that out. They've got to figure out the offensive line. And it may not necessarily be a big offensive line problem. They have faced 2 pretty solid pass rushes. So that might just work itself out when they face some average to below average teams. But they're going to be a good team. But good teams can lose close games, and good teams can end up 9-8. And that means good teams can miss the playoffs. So there is a bit of a concern. Ultimately, your record's what matters. The points that you put on the scoreboard matter, not the names and the star players you have. You've got to start winning games. I think as the schedule kind of normalizes, they're going to be fine moving forward. But they're definitely not the powerhouse right now that teams were expecting.
All right, another division favorite not living up to expectations is the Colts. So without Carson Wentz as the scapegoat that they had last year, is Frank Reich's seat getting a little bit hot here, Pierce?
Yeah, it is. I mean, he didn't close last season out very well. And as you mentioned, Wentz is gone now. So someone's got to get the finger pointed at them. And it's probably going to be Frank Reich. This team choked last year. They choked week 1. They choked week 2. And these aren't really choke jobs. They're just bad games, poorly executed. Matt Ryan is old. Maybe you should have stuck with the elite game manager in Carson Wentz. Wentz is looking pretty good right now. Maybe he wasn't the problem. Maybe it was Frank Reich not being able to motivate his team. Maybe it was the defensive scheme that sort of works, but sort of doesn't work. This is another division that's pretty much wide open, and the Jacksonville Jaguars have a real shot at winning this division. And if you look at the teams in the AFC South right now, Jacksonville looks like probably the best team. Now, we're going to see what Tennessee has, but I don't think it's going to look very good for Tennessee. And come Tuesday morning, there's going to be a lot of talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Jeff, please don't let Emerson hear you say the Jags are winning.
I won't go as far as that because Pierce has already done it, and who knows what Emerson's doing. He's probably running through a wall right now.
Yep.
This division is absolutely wide open, and Frank Reich deserves a lot of the blame. Who has Frank Reich brought in as quarterback the last 3 years? Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, and now the corpse of Matt Ryan. Like, this team had draft picks. They had like opportunities to move up, take a young quarterback, a cornerstone. They could have traded for players, and they bring in 3 retreads 3 years in a row. And then this extends like past the quarterback position. You've got bringing in Gilmore in the secondary. He's looking old. Their secondary looks awful. Just absolutely destroyed in the slot the first 2 weeks, and especially by Christian Kirk. Play the slot receiver against the Colts, by the way. Shaq Leonard hurt. Obviously, injuries are a thing, but like you can't just rely on injuries. I mean, this team does not look good. The Colts are I give the Bengals credit. Like I say the Bengals are going to be okay. The Colts are not going to be okay. Maybe because they're in a weak division, they can get themselves back into it in the back half of the year. But let's not forget, like they've got kind of a tough schedule as well. So no, I don't really see any reason to be bullish on the Colts. If this Michael Pittman injury lingers, then you can just really fade them. But for them to win, they're going to have to rely on the arm of Matt Ryan. They're going to need Pittman out there 100% and Jonathan Taylor. And that's it. If they can just throw to Pittman, then that's fine. And Matt Ryan is serviceable. But do you really want to rely on Matt Ryan at this point in his career and now a banged up Michael Pittman? This team is in big trouble. And yeah, Frank Reich deserves a lot of the blame for bringing in these quarterbacks 3 years in a row.
All right, it's still early in the season. So what's the biggest mirage so far? Something we can't believe that we're seeing. So is it like the Giants 2-0 start, Raiders 0-2, maybe to a 7 tutties so far? Or in Pierce's words, the elite game manager Carson Wentz with back-to-back 30-plus point fantasy performances. So what is definitely not lasting much longer, Jeff?
So, yeah, like we only have 2 games, and it's still hard to decipher what exactly, what is real and what isn't, Jesse. But I am going to say that the Kansas City Chiefs, maybe not a mirage, but I think that there's still room that for this team might not be quite as good as people think. I think they got lucky in that Chargers win. I think their offense struggled. I think their offense may not be as elite by the time we get to the end of the year. I think that they're going to have trouble against teams that are able to shut down the slot receiver, and they'll just have to focus on Travis Kelce. So I'm going to say that the Chiefs are open for a little bit of regression on offense. I'm not going to say they're a complete mirage because Patrick Mahomes is not a mirage, but I'm going to say that their offense the first couple weeks has been helped a little bit just in certain circumstances, maybe by their opponent as well. So it's a hot take. I get it, but I kind of like the Chargers in that division. I also think the Broncos are going to get better. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs here. I know it's a hot take, but I think they're going to get caught by one of those teams come season ends.
All right, Pierce, what do you think is definitely not lasting much longer?
I'll tell you who's not lasting much longer. It's Russell Rust Wilson with a 66 quarterback rating against the Houston Texans. Yeah, that's not really working out very well. Who could have predicted that Russell Wilson was
hey,
washed
they're 1-1,
up?
pal. Okay, 1-1. It's fine. You said it yourself. It
looking
just
great
matters
out there.
what's up on the scoreboard. Yeah, the rust is getting worked off. Okay, the cooking comes mid-season, Pierce. All right. Just
There's
calm
not
down.
going to be any cooking in that offense. It's just not going to happen. Not going to happen. Not when you complete half of your passes against the Texans. Carson Wentz, I think he can actually keep it up. Not necessarily because he's a great quarterback, but as opposed to years past with Washington, their defense does not look very good. So they're going to have to be more aggressive on offense. They're going to allow Wentz to sling it. He's going to throw his share of interceptions, but he's going to get touchdowns. He's going to get yards. I think the Giants, they're going to keep it up for a little bit longer because their schedule doesn't get that much tougher. I know they play some soft teams, but they've done so with defensive injuries. They've won 2 games without really having a wide receiver core, so I think they can sustain at least for the next 2 weeks given their schedule. And then the last guy that's not going to last much longer, or at least shouldn't, is Matt Rule. I don't know how he hasn't been fired yet. The Panthers are an absolute disaster. The Panthers could easily be 2-0. But if you've watched those 2 games, they deserve to be 0-17 right now. They gave the ball to CMC more, but they still haven't given it to him enough. In the last 2 games, if they just would have given the ball to McCaffrey, they would easily be 2-0. Terrible coaching. He's got to go.
Talk about new quarterbacks not working out. Baker Mayfield looks horrendous. And if you can't complete 50% of your passes against the Giants, holy cow, man. Yeah, Rule is gone by midseason.
Yeah, it's bad.
Shake and bake, baby. All right, guys, 2 Monday night games. So that means a 2-game classic slate for Vikings, Eagles, Titans, Bills. We're going to get your best bets for that. It's the NFL 2.25 Monday Millionaire Special. $20 entry, $1 million going to first place. Jeff, which top price guy needs to be in the lineup? Can't fade Jefferson, right?
I mean, yeah, no, I probably don't want to fade Justin Jefferson. You can go other ways. And I mentioned, like, yesterday when we were doing our Sunday preview show, I like Jalen Hurts for my captain here. It's just, you've got a game where it's projected to be back and forth the entire time. Jalen Hurts actually has some pretty decent passing props now. And he's a quarterback who you look at scramble rates from week 1, you look at designed run usage. Like, there's just nobody else who runs the ball like Jalen Hurts. I know Lamar Jackson is obviously a more explosive runner, but just in terms of usage, it's Jalen Hurts and it's everybody else. So I think that especially with the Eagles and how good they do have, like, just their corners and how good they do project against the wide receiver position, I would rather go with Hurts here. I trust that a little bit more. I think the Vikings could be more spread out just on offense, just in terms of who they're targeting. Give me Hurts here for my captain. If I'm paying money, that's where I'm going to go.
All right, Pierce, who are you paying money for?
I'll go with Jefferson. You could fade him. For me, it's coming down to the receivers. I like Jalen Hurts a lot, but what I don't like about the Eagles is that they give a lot of touchdowns to the running backs. And Hurts can still scramble into the end zone from time to time, but he loses a little bit of that upside, and I don't know if I really want to forfeit that. I don't know if I want to put him in the captain spot. Jefferson would be the guy. You could fade him and go to Diggs or go to any of the elite wide receivers on the slate. But ultimately, I mean, the matchups are pretty much the same. You can make him work with certain value plays. I don't think there's a wrong play between Brown, between Diggs, or between Jefferson. Not knowing the game plays or the game flow, one of them, if not all of them, are going to have massive gains. I'd try to get 2 if I can.
All right, let's talk about value here, Pierce. Where are you looking to plug that into your lineup?
Well, you do have the Jalen Reagor revenge game narrative. Unfortunately, he played a whole of 0 snaps last week, so I don't know if that's really going to work. And I'm not really attracted to any of the super cheap punt plays. So I'll go with Devin Singletary. Based on talent alone, he is way underpriced. And I think you can get a little bit of lower ownership just because of the narrative that, Buffalo doesn't run the ball. Buffalo likes to pass. Josh Allen does all the rushing. He scoops up all the touchdowns. And not to mention, there's 3 really good running backs on Buffalo. So that should suppress his ownership some. But we know in an average week, he should get 10 to 15 carries, a little bit of passing work. And he's got a lot of upside, easy to break one open. Ultimately, for me, it's just his price is way lower than what he should be based on talent. It's just that game flow-wise, people don't expect him to have a big game. Because of all the other mouths to feed, that's going to lower his ownership. So on a 2-game slate, I like the price and the low ownership possibility.
All right. How about player props? Let's move to player props. Jeff, where are you going for this one?
Yeah, that's okay. I'll combine my value and player prop.
Yeah, actually,
anyways.
I just realized. No, Jeff, just give me your value play first, and then your favorite player prop.
Okay, it's Robert Woods. I mean, we got to talk about this Tennessee Buffalo game a bit, and I think that Robert Woods at 4,400. I mean, no one's going to play him, first of all, because people think, well, he got like 1 target last game. But in terms of just usage, like running routes, being on the field, Robert Woods was it. Like he was projecting as the number 1 option. I think that's going to shine through in this game. Tennessee didn't have to throw that much against the Giants. They weren't under pressure. They were getting the slot receiver open, so they just went to him. They're going to need Woods against Buffalo. And if you look at Buffalo week 1, like their secondary was not good. Tre'Davious White still out. I think Woods can have a big game here. I really do. And if you look at Ryan Tannehill over the last 2 years, 17 times a wide receiver has gone for 100 yards or more with Ryan Tannehill. It's weird. I don't know why that's a weird stat, but I think Robert Woods shows up tonight. I think at 4,400, definitely a player with the game flow being in terms of like a more pass-happy game from Tennessee. That's a player I'd want for DFS.
All right, now your favorite player prop, Jeff. Let's move to the DK Sportsbook.
Like I said, we're going to stick with Robert Woods here because I think his player prop at 40.5, it's just way too low. I mean, you look across the industry, 40.5, this is one of the lowest totals you're going to find. So DraftKings Sportsbook, it's one I would take advantage of it. If you want to take it a step further, I mentioned that Ryan Tannehill prop. You go under player parlays at DraftKings Sportsbook, you can get Robert Woods 100+ receiving yards and 1 touchdown for plus 1,100. That's your YOLO play for tonight. I think that this Tennessee passing attack going to have to do something. Maybe it's garbage time. Maybe this game stays close and Tannehill just surprises Pierce again with how decent he is as an elite game manager, Pierce. But I like going over on Woods' prop tonight. Props.
Pierce, which favorite player prop are you going to roll with?
Well, just like Jeff, he's going to stick with the same value and the same prop, and I'm in the same place. I'll take Devin Singletary over 44.5 rushing yards. That just doesn't match the talent level that he has in his first game, 48 yards on just 8 carries. The volume is a concern. I expect him to have a little bit more volume in this matchup, but he is explosive, so he doesn't necessarily need all of that volume. And it's a game where we're expecting Buffalo. I mean, they are a 10-point favorite, so they're going to play with the lead. I know Buffalo still passes while they're up, but they're going to run the ball, and I imagine Singletary will get plenty of work. Ken Dorsey did an amazing job in week 1 with the game plan. You've given him extra days this week to prepare for this game. I expect to work more Singletary into this game and easily clear a 44.5. That's a small number for the lead running back.
All right, finally, Pierce, which money line, game total, or spread are you going to go with from those 2 games tonight?
I'll be the mark, and I'll take Buffalo -10. And the reason I'm leaning there is just because we've already talked about during the show, we're overreacting or underreacting to these teams. We don't know who's real, who's a fraud. The one team that we can all circle and say, I think we've got this team pretty much figured out, it's the Buffalo Bills. And I hate that I've got to lay 10 points, but you watch the way that they played on offense and on defense against the defending Super Bowl champs on the road. And they even came out sluggish and still in that second half went full throttle and were absolutely unstoppable. They've got extra days to prepare. Meanwhile, we don't really know what to expect from Tennessee. If anything, they're a fraud. They were a fraud last season. We saw that in the playoffs, and we saw that week 1 from Tennessee. I'm sure that they're going to improve, but this is a really tough matchup for them. And then if you try to pick for the Vikings and Eagles, they both could be really good, but the Vikings have been inconsistent over the last couple seasons with poor quarterback play at times. Maybe they're finally going to be consistent. It's too early to tell. The Eagles will get better, but they've got to develop. They've got to gel as a unit. I think just the safest play is to go, the square route and take Buffalo and lay the 10.
Jeff, you going the square route?
Well, I mean, look, at 10.5, it's kind of on the Titans, but this line has moved to where you don't even have to lay 10, Pierce. It's 9.5. So I'm not going to go there just because Pierce has already talked about it. But now that the number has moved down, I actually would lean Buffalo in that game. I'm gonna go with the Eagles minus 2.5. Like this game it is between two teams. We're not exactly sure how good these teams are yet. We've got a new head coach on one side. We've got an offense with the Eagles that looked good week one, but it was against Detroit. And, they're still mixing in a new wide receiver one. But the Eagles are at home here. I think the Eagles defense is a lot better than what we saw last week. And I just think that they're going to be able to do enough to stymie Kirk Cousins. And, like, realistically, I know Kirk Cousins is like probably better than I give him credit for on the show. But what is his record against good teams? It's #bad. And I think that the Eagles at minus 2.5, I think this line should be 3. I think it should maybe even be 3.5 Eagles. I just don't think that they're getting enough credit. I don't think that Jalen Hurts is a guy in the betting market who really ever gets enough credit. I mentioned his elite running status. I think that the Eagles defense will do enough. The Eagles offense improved. Give me the Eagles to cover minus 2.5. We'll take it. These are two good teams, though. Both of these teams we could see playoff time do something with the way the NFC is right now.
All right, that's a good hashtag take, Jeff. All right, thanks you two. We have a lot coming up on the Sweat this week, but just in case you missed anything last week, let's catch you up. How about that?
There's a flow for the show, and we do it for a reason. Damn it.
This week on The Sweat.
I'm here to tell you right now, I don't care.
Yeah!
I don't care.
Rookie head coaches went 4-0 on Sunday. The 5th rookie head coach could not hack it.
How dare you? How dare you?
Hold on a second.
Hard to like Denver right now, given what we saw last night. With the Hackett situation, yeah, we had hardly ever seen this.
Nick, before I ask you if you're going to splurge or save in the infield, what's your top-ranked Lunchable?
We noticed you're all dressed up today. Like, do you have to go to court after this? What's going on?
I wear a jacket a lot because I'm a professional. I'm the host of this show. I want, I believe it's science when you wear a jacket. All right, yeah, a little bit of shorts, I guess. When you wear a jacket, people tend to believe more things that you say.
Why does everybody have to be so one-dimensional? You can watch two things at one time. This day and age,
I have 9 TVs. I can watch whatever I want to watch, whenever I want to watch it, all at the same time.
The Cowboys season, it's over already. Dak Prescott breaking his thumb.
Let's start with the positive. Dallas's defense did hold Tom Brady and the Bucs to 1 touchdown.
They had issues before the Dak injury. Those issues are just going to be compounded.
Would you go to Home Depot and be like, why don't they sell cars here? What the hell? Like, dude, you're in Home Depot. We have wood.
if you pick Julio Rodriguez, I'm not answering. I'm leaving.
My eyes are closed. Who do I pick? It's Julio Rodriguez!
Not doing it. No, I'm not doing it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it with the 0 spot. I don't care.
My
Billy.
eyes were closed.
Look, we're gonna go backstage. Follow me out the studio. I'm not doing it. We're gonna go down to the kitchen. I'm gonna get a snack.
What the hell is happening right now?
Tried.
Welcome back to The Sweat. I'm Jesse Cofield. I'm here with Chirag Hira. We got some stuff to talk about. We're going to recap week 2 in Rainmakers and look at the week ahead. So something cool that's coming up this week. Live stream with Chris Costa and Gary V. So the top 20 in the V Friends League week 2 contest get a physical card that Gary and Chris will break Tuesday night. That is Tuesday, September 20th. Very cool. So like I said, I'm here with Chirag Hira, a DraftKings contributor. Another crazy week in the NFL, Chirag, which means a crazy week in Rainmakers. I said one of those cool prizes this week is in the V Friends League, where that top 20 in the week 2 contest get a spot in the V Friends pack break. So Chirag, you got to look at the lineup that took first in the V Friends League. Can you break it down?
It is an amazing lineup. It hits on Tua, also running it back with Tyreek and Waddle. I think the awesome part about it was Chubb. With those 3 touchdowns, he was able to really elevate this lineup towards the top of it, but then Bateman also catching his 1 touchdown pass after that little slant play. I thought that was really impressive. As we can see here, there were 3,491 entrants in the contest. There will be 20, as you mentioned, in that special pack break tomorrow night on all our channels. But most importantly, top 1,000 will be moving on to the major contest for week 4. So you want to make sure to enter next week as well, because 1,000 people will be going to the Week 4 contest, but then there will be also some additional prizing that we'll be announcing on DK Nation and also in the Discord.
All right, so Sherrod, what were some of the injuries and storylines that were really affecting the DraftKings marketplace after Sunday?
Well, the biggest one has to be Trey Lance. He broke his ankle and will be done for the season. And instantly, we saw Jimmy G's player cards take a huge spike in price, on the floor price of these. For example, this rare Jimmy G right here was $32 right before the injury, and now it's sitting at $149. So instantly, people were just picking up this play and just moving forward. But also, James Conner, he got injured in the Cardinals game, and Darrell Williams is his backup. Darrell Williams, his rare card was sitting at $2.50 on the floor price. It is now $13.99 on the rare. So $2 just to get in. But the biggest thing to notice is that there are injury situations that you need to monitor throughout the entire slate. When you see an injury pop up, hey, go to the DraftKings marketplace and check out which player that you really need to consider. But also, another guy that may have really cemented himself with his target share. Another huge performance this week from Deontay Johnson. Maybe not in the fantasy scoreboard, but his target share was there. And we saw this Rainmakers one go for $61.69. Now the floor price is $7,500. So whoever picked that up is expecting big things for Deontay Johnson moving forward with the season.
All right, Sherrod, get into the nitty-gritty with us. Which players have good matchups this week, and so you're expecting their player cards to be in high demand here?
Well, I'm really looking at Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, and Jalen Hurts. Justin Jefferson and Jalen Hurts are on the Monday Night Football slate. So as you can see, their player card NFTs have already spiked in value. The rare sitting at $235, and we have the core sitting at $44.90. But then Justin Jefferson, he's a superstar. You know what he did against the Packers, but now looking for that Monday Night Football matchup, I believe that Justin Jefferson's price is also going to go up heading into Week 3, but they could already be elevated due to the Monday Night Football showdown situation. So my top dog, Cooper Kupp. Yes, it's a cop-out. Yes, it feels pretty obvious, but this is a player here. They're going to be playing against the Cardinals. Sure, they were able to slow down Devontae Adams, but I don't think that they're going to be able to slow down Cooper Kupp in Week 3. That's a person that I'm really looking for on that main slate. But moving to a showdown, looking at Saquon Barkley. I expect him to have a bounce-back performance against the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. Since it is a showdown, that may cause a supply crunch. So consider looking at Saquon Barkley for that Monday Night Football showdown if you're looking to play it.
All right, Sherrod, what's just coming up this week? Is there anything you can share with us?
Not yet, but there will be some special announcements. DraftKings is always looking to enhance the Rainmakers football experience, so you want to stay plugged into the Discord and make sure that everything that you have there will be the breaking news on the Discord. Then it'll go to DK Nation. But otherwise, make sure to stay tuned to the lobby and then look for those star featured player contests.
All right, thank you, Sherrod. We will stay tuned, everybody. Make sure you do that. So a lot of football so far in the show. Eric Halterman is here to break it up with some baseball coming up next.
Lamar, Zeke, Stephon, you've all been summoned to the Kevin verse.
You gotta be kidding me.
You're here because you're on my DraftKings Rainmakers fantasy team.
I liked him better when he was tiny.
Lamar, keep talking and I'll put you on a tiny bench. I've collected your digital player cards, and you're gonna help me build my NFT fantasy franchise so I can start crushing the competition. I need you all at 100%. Zeke, you're gonna catch a cold in that crop top. Maybe you should consider putting your belly button away. Hey, Lamar, you getting enough sleep? I seen you posting pictures in the club.
You stalking me?
Diggs, you gotta keep your hands moist so they stay soft. Nice and moist.
Please, stop saying moist.
We done here, man.
Well, go ahead. There's the exit. Ha!
Build a roster by opening packs and joining drops and win a share of over $1 million in prizes every week of the NFL season. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app to get your free full roster starter pack. DraftKings Rainmakers Football. Build, play, win.
My God, Aaron Judge. Look at this man go. 59 home runs so far this year. You're looking at a board of the MLB single-season home run leaders since 2010. And as you can see, Aaron Judge in the lead here, doing pretty well. He's tied with Giancarlo Stanton from 2017. Welcome back to The Sweat, everybody. It is time for MLB Cover the Bases, covering all the best plays on DraftKings in the MLB tonight. So, like I said, Aaron Judge hits 2 more home runs. He's at 59. So he's only 6. We've only had, as you saw on the board, 6 50-homer seasons since 2010. Judge already has one of them. He and Giancarlo Stanton are the only ones to go more than 55 in that time. Judge is probably going to get the MVP, but just how impressive is this season, especially with the low home run totals early in the season because of the change in the balls? Like, Eric, could this be the most impressive home run season of all time?
So it's not the most impressive home run season of all time. It's not in the top 3, but I think it might be 4th, and I think it might be the best of our lifetimes. The top 3, though, are all Babe Ruth seasons. They're the years in which Ruth invented the home run. And in 2019, he hit 29 homers. Second place had 10, including a guy named Frank Home Run Baker. Back then, you got nicknamed Home Run if you hit 10, and Ruth hit 29. Followed it up by hitting 54 the next year. Second place hit 19. Only one other team had more than 54, and their right field line was at 280 feet. And in 1921, he hit 59, while second place had 24. So I think you cited some things about how far Judge is ahead of the pack lately. That puts him in contention for number 4, but if we're talking ahead of the pack, it has to be those 3 Babe Ruth seasons. The only other case I think might be Barry Bonds' 73, obviously because it's the most of all time, and partially because he was walked so often. He was walked in 26.7% of his plate appearances that year. So he had only 9 more home runs than Sammy Sosa's 64 that year, but he did it in 101 fewer at-bats. So I think it's either that one or Aaron Judge this year as the case for the best of our lifetimes. But man, the equivalent of Babe Ruth hitting more than all but one team in 1920, that would be like Aaron Judge hitting about 240 homers this year. So he's got a long way to go if he's going to be the most impressive of all time.
All right, fair enough, but let's get to what's going on right now. Covering the bases here. So for first base, I need your best DFS play on the main slate tonight. You got 7 games here. Where are you going?
Yeah, I guess I can't go back to the 1920s for this one. We'll stick in 2022. Kyle Wright, I think at 8,800 is my most exciting starter and I think most exciting overall play on the main slate. Kyle Wright had a random dud against Oakland 2 starts ago, 8 earned runs in 4 innings pitched. But I don't think that's the sign of him reverting to the guy he was his first several seasons. I think this breakout has seemed to be very real. He's sustained it for basically all the second half, again, outside of that one random dud. And even with that random bad start against one of the weakest offenses in the league, he still has a 3.06 ERA over his last 6 starts. Been a solid pitcher again throughout the year. Not stand out in terms of strikeouts and walks, but good in both areas. Plus, he keeps the ball on the ground well. That's going to be more than enough at home against a Washington team that's a bottom 10 offense by Team WRC+.
All right, for second base, let's get a value play in DFS. Where are you going to plug that in?
Yeah, so this one you'll have to check the injury reports, but Lamont Wade Jr., he sat for 3 games due to side tightness, but the last 2 of those came against lefties, so he was probably never going to play, and he appeared off the bench Sunday, so I think he'll be in the lineup. And Wade should be leading off for the Giants against the Rockies at Coors Field, so that in and of itself is enough reason to like him. $3,200 for a leadoff guy in Coors Field. Almost doesn't matter who he is, especially against Chad Kuhl, whose ERA starts with a 5. But Wade is having a better season than you might think looking at his service numbers as well. He's only hitting 191 on the year, but a 209 batting average on balls in play. That's about 90 points lower than it should be. That explains a lot of that. He's above average walk numbers, about league average strikeouts, and he's barreling the ball just over 10% of the time. That's a line that should lead to a much better performance than he's had. If he's in the lineup, I think he's positioned perfectly here at Coors Field.
All right, let's move on over to the sportsbook side of things for third base. What is your best run total bet tonight?
Well, we've got 2 of the best pitches in the league going tonight. Max Scherzer at Corbin Burns, and the over-under set at 6.5, and it's even money. I would definitely take the under here. I know this is Scherzer's first start back from an injury, and he might not go all that deep. But even if we get 5 innings from him, the Mets have a perfectly solid bullpen. Corbin Burns, on the other side, remains one of the best pitchers in baseball. I can't see this one being more than 4-2. If this one ends up as a 4-3 or 5-3, I think that would count as a disappointing performance from pitchers this good.
All right, home plate, favorite game bet. Where are you going?
Yeah, I'm looking at that Marlins versus Cubs. And I think either Marlins minus 140 or you can spot the Cubs run and a half and go Marlins plus 160. I think both of those are pretty interesting. And that's because Edward Cabrera for the Marlins is somebody who I think should be getting more respect, much more than Wade Miley on the other side, who hasn't really shown anything to like at this stage of his career. Well, he's got a better ERA than I thought. It is an ERA under 3, actually, double checking with Miley, but there's just nothing there that's exciting. Still the same guy with not a lot of strikeouts. The Marlins aren't going to score a lot, but I think Cabrera on the other side is an exciting young pitcher. He's got an ERA under 3 as well. Comes with a few too many walks, but he's striking out a lot of guys and keeping the ball on the ground. I think there's just a lot more upside too with Cabrera. I don't think we've seen everything we've seen from him, and Miley, I think we've seen everything there is, and it's fine at the best of times, but not much more than that. Not much to say about either of the lineups, but when they're both poor, I'll take the pitcher who's young and exciting and has something going for him rather than the guy who's merely getting by.
All right, Eric, for extra bases, hit us with a player prop that you're liking for tonight.
Yeah, I'm looking at Logan Gilbert. I guess it's technically not tonight. It's the mid-afternoon game, but Logan Gilbert to go over 5.5 strikeouts against the Angels. It was at minus 115 last I checked. Gilbert is only about a league average strikeout guy, 22.5% for the season, but he's had 9 strikeouts in 2 of his last 3 starts, so he's definitely capable of getting a high whiff number against a team that strikes out a lot. And there's no team that strikes out more than the Angels. They lead the league with a 26.1% team strikeout rate. Only the Pirates are within 1.5 points of that mark. The Angels actually have a decent offense. There's some good hitters, obviously, Trout and Ohtani in that lineup, but even those guys strike out a decent amount. Trout, especially this year, has a strikeout rate in the high 20s. So even facing the Angels' good hitters, Logan Gilbert still has a chance to get a few strikeouts, and they have plenty of weak hitters near the back of the lineup that I think he'll pad his total against.
All right, thanks, Eric. One more block to go here on The Sweat. We're going to talk about the President's Cup from a betting perspective. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Sweat. I'm here with DraftKings contributor Jeff Ulrich and DK Nation's Colin Sherwin. Before we get to the President's Cup, we got to talk about the amazing finish to the Fortinet Championship. Max Homa didn't pack it up and head to Quail Hollow. No, he defends his championship with a birdie chip in as Danny Willett bogeys. Homa starts the season the same as last season. Jeff, thoughts on the tournament? I heard that you faded Homa hard.
Yeah. Max Homa just needs to come in. He's just not going to care because the President's Cup's next weekend. Guess he cares about money and trophies. Wow, big shock. We're idiots as well, big shock. But no, I mean, like, honestly, what happened at the Safeway Open kind of overshadowed by all the craziness in the NFL. Danny Willett was basically at 99.9999999% chance to win that event. The guy chipped it to within 3 feet. Max Homa duffed his first bunker shot and then needed to chip in just to have a shot at getting in the playoff. He chips in, and somehow a PGA professional 3-putted from 3.7 feet. if that's not drama and craziness, I don't know what is. Really, really heartbreaking for Danny Willett, a good guy who obviously, has the Masters win, hasn't won on the PGA Tour since then. And you got to feel for him. But Max Homa grinded it out, and credit to him, man. This guy is absolutely becoming the new face of the PGA Tour. It comes to these like lower end events, gives it his all despite having the President's Cup to play for next week. I really do like Max Homa, and I almost feel, I already feel stupid for saying you should have faded him, but I feel even worse because he is such a good guy, and I think he's a player you need to look at for these bigger events next year. Very, very strong strong player mentally. I can't talk this morning. That, just kind of a joy to watch, and the PGA is lucky to have him, quite frankly.
Colin, you doing a 180 on Homa as well here?
Yeah, we're dumb. I thought that he would have his brain halfway to Charlotte already, but huge credit to him. Just not giving up, grinding through it, and then just poor Danny Willett. If the guy hadn't won a major, we'd all be calling him a choker today. But just terrible spot. But again, it's tough when all of these good guys are just fighting it out on the PGA Tour, and there's not really a villain to root for. Can we get some of these live guys to come back so we have people to root against on the PGA Tour? Because it's just it's more heartbreaking than you're celebrating for Homa, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, now Homa's exempt through. He's the first player through the PGA Tour to be exempt through the 2025 season. That's the thing about winning this one now. You can set your schedule for the next 3 years, and you're going to be exempt for all the events that you want to be. So that might even help Homa out even more. I do think he's going to be in contention for some of these majors. Maybe not Augusta, but some of the other ones around. LACC would seem to be a course that would set up really well for him this year.
Good call. Like it. West Coast guy too, Colin.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's get to the task at hand, fellas. President's Cup this week at Quail Hollow. USA are heavy favorites, but formats will be coming into play here. So day one, going to see a day of foursomes where each team plays just one ball. So, Colin, do you anticipate the U.S. team dominating in each format, or what's going to be their strength this week?
Their strength is they're just better at golf, and a lot of the guys that would be eligible are ineligible for the international team. Look, the USA is minus 700 on the board. I think that's kind of low. I would go as high as 11 or 12 here, pretty comfortably. I think the US just sort of runs away with this thing, especially on home soil. This doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense to bet this week. And quite frankly, this event, without some of the best players on the international side, it's always been weird and kind of clunky anyway. I'm not sure that this is great television. I'm not sure this is something that people are going to be watching. The only advantage of the President's Cup over the Ryder Cup is that the draft for how they match up the teams is much more like your fantasy football draft instead of just a blind piece of paper being submitted. And that's a little bit more fun. I do wish the Ryder Cup would implement that. But otherwise, why can't we just have sort of the South American players going against the Australian players, or the Asian players going against the African players? Let's make this weekend one thing, and then have those two teams either, sort of like the Davis Cup, where the following year the winners will play and the losers will play. Let's do something a little bit different here with this event, because this is just going to be really boring, and the U.S. is going to walk through this thing.
Jeff, do you agree it's just going to be a snooze fest?
I do disagree. And I'm not going to sit out here and say, oh yeah, the internationals are going to win. Get on, I'm a plus 700. Should probably be closer to plus 1,000. I think this will be a little bit more entertaining and closer than Colin thinks. And there's a couple different reasons. In a lot of ways, the internationals may have done themselves some favors by getting rid of these live guys. I like Louis. I'm a known Louis backer. But Brandon Grace, Louis, these guys are in the tail ends of their career. Replacing guys veterans like that early with guys like Cam Davis, giving a chance to Christian Bezuidenhout. These are really top-end young players who just aren't going to have any, and you say no experience, but also no fear. There's no expectations for players. When you give high-end players no expectations and just the freedom to kind of do what you want, sometimes surprising results happen. I think this is going to be a closer event than people realize. And I think that there's a couple reasons for that. I also just don't know what the U.S. motivation is here. It's not the Ryder Cup. You don't have guys on the other side of the pond chirping Tyrrell Hatton, Pilta, say, oh yeah, this is all event. It's just the internationals. Where's the motivation for the U.S. team here? I guess that it's on home soil and that they're a bunch of young guys in themselves who just want to show up. But I think this will be a little bit closer than people think. I think it's going to be entertaining for that reason. I'm not going to go so far to call the upset, but I think it'll be a tiny bit closer than people realize. I think that alone will make this exciting.
All right, so Jeff, like, in which formats do you think the international team can get some points? We said that the U.S. team's probably gonna, be a cakewalk through some of these, but where can those international guys rack up some?
So, I mean, like, the U.S. just has such an advantage straight up, just in terms of singles. You have to look for the team play, and that is where the internationals struck early in the last President's Cup when they were down in Australia. They actually, they were not only hanging, they were leading at some points after the team play. This is where the internationals can make their mark, because they do have one thing the internationals do. They do have some players, like pairs from similar countries. They're gonna join these guys up, and that's really worked out for them in the past. Like the South African teams have worked out. The Australian teams have worked out. You're going to see you're going to see the international team do the same kind of thing. They're going to try and pair these guys up to fit with their nationalities, and I think it's going to work out for them. So I wouldn't necessarily, again, fade the U.S. completely in the team play, but I would look for some underdog shots in these matchups and take the international side. You're going to get really good odds on them, on some of these teams that are going to appear weaker, is going to appear like mismatches, but the team format is going to equalize things a bit for the international side the first couple days. I expect a blowout once we get to the singles matches, but for team play, this is where I think the internationals can keep this close.
Colin, do you agree it's going to be in the team play?
Yeah, it's their best chance. The alt shot format, I think, especially favors them. It sort of limits some of the length and some of the ability around the greens that the U.S. has. If you only put one ball in play, it's better than having two balls in play. It's sort of like the triple option, where you sort of want to limit the number of total opportunities for the better team to win. So I think the alt shot format is where, if the international team is going to score, they've got to score a lot. But yeah, this thing, it shouldn't be good. I do agree that you're going to pair up the players from similar countries. So Corey Connors and Cam Davis, I think we can sort of like write that in right now. Those guys are going to play together. The 4 Korean players, they'll be put in whatever order that they feel pairs up the best. But I just don't see any real legitimate path forward over a 30-match sample where the U.S. sort of gets left behind here. I agree motivation could be an issue, but look, these guys they're prepping for Ryder Cups, man. They got to go at next year too. It's one thing to win it at home at Whistling Straits, but Ryder Cups on the road are a lot tougher. And this is, a lot of these guys are going to be back, maybe except for like Billy Horschel. I think everybody else should probably be in contention next year to be on the team for the American side. So I think this turns into a walkover and a laugher, but if the international team's going to score, they're going to do it in alt shot.
All right, so we are going to have some DFS on DraftKings for the event. So who are you targeting this week to play well here, Colin?
Yeah, I think, look, Max Homa, I think, is clearly in form right now. That was not the best field he beat this week, but I think he's certainly a player that's going to be in contention and someone that you need to be looking at. On the international side, this is where I think it gets interesting. Hideki Matsuyama has played at ceiling as well as anyone in the world when he puts it together, and Mito Pereira was one hole away from winning a major this year. So those are the two guys on the international side that I think could really peak in focus for this event. This is their only opportunity to do anything in international competition outside of the Olympics. On the U.S. side, Homa is definitely a guy I'm going to target, and Scotty Scheffler. Look, this guy, especially his experience as he was in collegiate golf. Remember, collegiate golf is something that really translates well here if you're a strong collegiate golfer. I do think Scheffler is just a guy who can just absolutely, he's going to 5-0 is on the table here this week. 5-0, 6-0, something along those lines. He can really, really play. And I think this is one of those opportunities where he's the kind of guy that sets up really, really well. And especially, of course, like Quail Hollow, where he's just going to be able to bomb the ball.
Jeff, Scotty Scheffler is your most expensive option here.
Yeah, so for DraftKings DFS play, don't forget, you do have, even the classic contest, you've got to pick a captain. So you've got to have a player who's you're projecting for the most points. And how do you get points? You play. You have to have a player who's getting out there, because if he's not out there, he's not going to be able to get you points. I like Sungjae Im for that reason. I think Sungjae Im is going to get absolutely leaned on by the international squad. And one thing we did see in the last President's Cup, the USA, even their stars, they rotated because they just have such a deep bench. The international team does not have that luxury. What do we know about Sungjae Im? He likes to play golf. Literally every week he plays. I think this is a great spot to use him, and it's going to be a little bit contrarian. Most people are going to be looking to put an American in there because they're such heavy favorites. I think Im could go out there, have a really good week, maybe go 4-1-1 or something like that, and like be a top scorer. So Sanjay Im's a guy I would be leaning on. Taylor Pendrith is another international player I'm pretty bullish on. Also looking at him on the DraftKings Sportsbook, top international, like captain's pick, top rookie, really long off the tee. Colin just mentioned the course setup's good for him. He's been good for the last 3 months. I mean, he's been one of the best players on the PGA Tour. He's been beating some of the American players, went toe-to-toe with Tony Finau. Taylor Pendrith is I think, a little bit underrated in the betting markets right now. That's a player I'd be targeting in DFS as well.
Jeff, Colin, thank you so much. That is a show. Madden kicks off at noon. Make sure you tune into that. We got the slate this evening, and we will be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m., so we'll see you then.